hope everyone's having a great conference so far. My name is Seth Landau, and I am a Vice President with MindStream Analytics. I work in the financial close practice, financial close and reporting, and I'm also the head of project management, the project management office for MindStream Analytics. So it is a pleasure to have everyone here with me today. And before we get started, I just want to offer up to anyone who would like to enter our raffle to please send your name, your work email, and your company to info@mindstreamanalytics.com. And after the presentation, the winner will be announced, and I'll give a reminder at the end of the presentation. So if anyone's interested in a $50 gift card from Amazon, please feel free to enter the raffle. So just a moment on MindStream Analytics. We have been around since 2009. We are an EPM and managed services company that really, we have a local presence, but we really are, we're throughout the world, and we have a joint venture with two leading companies in Europe and in Australia. So Taste, Salzin, and Plenium work with us as part of the Atlantic Global Alliance. And we provide 24/7 follow-the-sun support. You can see our domain expertise is not only across all of the EPM stack within Hyperion. We work throughout many, but Hyperion is our focus, and Hyperion has been our bread and butter since day one, and really all of our background comes from the Hyperion days. So my days started out with Hyperion Enterprise back in the late 90s, and that has been our specialty ever since. So my focus has really been for the past 20 plus years in EPM and operations management, and I've really focused again on the financial close products with Enterprise HFM, and then in the latter days, financial close consolidation service, the account reconciliation products, tax reporting, all of the different products that go along with financial close. So what are we going to talk about today? What are the challenges in your finance department? So what do we need to keep track of? How do we get organized? And then I'm going to take you through two modules of FCCS that sit within FCCS that really, supplement and work well, and really, are critical components of how our EPM stack can integrate with each other and really keep the full breadth of the close process together. So what are the challenges in your finance department? So the majority of finance departments in an organization use email to track tasks during a financial close or budget forecast process, or account reconciliation, anything like that. Email is certainly very good, and it's been around for quite a long time. However, with email, it tends to get confusing. It tends to get, the tone of the email, you sometimes can't really make out what the most important information is from it, because you're kind of interpreting what that email is telling you, as well as just the fact that there's emails going all over the place and they're disjointed. So you really don't have one centralized place to communicate and to see all that information. So we use a lot of collaboration tools as well. Zoom, as we're using today, GoToMeeting, Microsoft Teams, Sococo, Citrix, ShareFile, SharePoint, you name them, they're out there, right? WebEx. And there's multiple versions of documents in any of these places or in the directories that go back and forth through email. So it's really difficult to track, right? We have stuff sitting all over the place, and I know our company, we've worked very hard to centralize everything, but it's always something you're in a hurry, something, you need to get something out, and you throw it out there to somebody, and you put it in an email, the documents, and then it never gets into the repository, and other people who need it later, they don't have the access to it. There's no direct integration from task workflow to the actual task. So workflow really has become more and more important. certainly with the controls that are in place, whether it's, the SOX compliance controls, whether it's, in our managed services group, our app care support, workflow is really critical in terms of tickets and help desk tickets. It's really important to have that audit trail and have that information that you can access at any one time. Little to no certification of the task being complete. So you can say, okay, I did it. You can send out an email. It's hard to find that email, but there's nothing you can go to that says this is done and it's signed off on. And as I said, the inefficient approval tracking process. So not only who's preparing it, who's doing the actual task, but who's going in and making sure that it is accurate. Lack of visibility of overall process to senior management. Senior management, they're always asking, always looking for different things. I know my senior management's always, where's this file? And when it's all sitting in the right places and all sitting in a centralized place that you can access, they don't have to ask those questions. Mitigation of issues are only as fast as the recipient responds to them, single-threaded. So again, if they're single-threaded, it's hard to, they're coming in different directions, but two, it's that single thread. You're not being able to have everybody, add to that one area where you can access, and everything in real time is synchronized and brought together. Difficult to track multi-threaded tasks across various entities, regions, departments. So even if you have a good multi-threaded process, you're still having difficulty if you have a decentralized organization. And most have, regions and have different divisions and groups across the world or even across the country. And you have to be able to track those very quickly. And then hard to store and track non-standard financial data without manual manipulation. So again, if you're trying to put in data that isn't just regular financial data like your balance sheet, your profit and loss statement, your cash flow, but you need to look at, other types of supplemental data like debt schedules and tax schedules and various things, footnotes, you need to be able to get to those as well. And it's very hard because storing some of that narrative or some of that non-standard financial numeric data is difficult. So again, you need to find a place where you can do all that. So what do we need to keep track of? I've already touched on a few of these things, but your GL, your ERP, your general ledger, your journal entries that you're making, your transactional data, close confirmations, any financial templates or input forms, your intercompany balances. You're always trying to work through a process of helping to streamline that process. Your capital spending reports, any adjusting gap entries, topside entries. Account reconciliations is a critical one that needs workflow. From a budget planning, revenue forecast updates, your driver updates, allocations, budget cycle drafts, workforce planning. And then on the supplemental data side, as I mentioned, footnotes, debt schedules, purchase obligations, property statistics. I mean, you go on and on. Provisions for your tax schedules, and the actual returns. And I'm not even getting into stuff like your 10Ks and 10Qs and the different reports that have to have tremendous workflow as there's so many pieces coming together before you even get it to the point where you can, approve it and upload it. So the first thing I want to talk about, the first module of EPM, of the Oracle Cloud products, is Task Manager. So it comes with FCCS, and how do we get organized with this, right? What is Task Manager really doing? Centralization is a big thing, right? Bringing that together, having one place to store, to group, to complete all tasks, and to make sure that you have the you trust the integrity of it, that it's going to be backed up, that it's going to be real time, that it's going to be able to be accessed at any given time, and it's not going to be down for any period of time. Your dashboards, better visibility across the organization. So your analyst who's working through these tasks, to your C-level who wants to see where are we at any given time in the process. Interactive calendar, whether you have a Gantt chart, a drilled through calendar. Email alerts. So I mentioned just because I'm saying that, just sending an email with a document may not always be the best idea, having email alerts is still very important, right? Just let it work together with the tool, right? So if you're going through a workflow, it's going to send that email alert out when the user is ready or the preparer is ready to work on that task. And then if there's a change, it'll alert the appropriate user, or the approver will get that email when it's time for them, and they can drill directly in to the task and go through the process of approving it. So email is still very important. It's just used in a different way. Workflow, obviously this whole presentation today is really around your workflow and, properly assigning and approving, but not only assigning and approving, but having a team behind it, so should you need a backup on the fly, they're able to step right in. Integrations, API, to link tasks to workflow. So there's a lot of integration, especially with the Oracle Cloud, linking all of these EPM products together. So you can really bring that. With Task Manager, it gives you a lot of pre-built integrations that you can connect with almost all of the functionality within FCCS, within ARCs, within different tools within EPM. And if they're not there, you can use the API connectors to be able to build these out. Reporting, key indicator to task management. So reports are obviously very important, whether they're online or they're in PDF format. Unit driven can review by organization unit. So you can control your calendars by organization unit. So if it's important to separate those calendars because you're in different regions, different areas of the world, different time zones, you have the ability to separate those. Automation. Obviously, in today's world, automation is critical. Companies are, loading their data, especially during financial close or their budgets. There's multiple versions. There's flash reporting. They're loading multiple times a day. They're not just loading, every day. They're loading multiple times a day. They're not just loading, their trial balance. They're loading some of their transactional data that they need to do operational reporting. There is a whole, lot of different components that automation is really critical for it to be practical. And I know there's still a lot of companies out there that are very manual, Excel driven, and Excel is a wonderful tool, but if used properly, if it's used just for manual input all the time, it can really be inefficient to the overall process. Certification, validation rules to restrict promotion or approval if the criteria is not met. So certification is, there's confirmation around the validations, there's certification around is everything done in complete in the proper way to the proper protocol and the proper rules. So let's get a little bit into Task Manager directly. So FCCS is really, Financial Closing Consolidation Service is really kind of the gatekeeper. If you think of a holding company for, to hold the investment of a subsidiary, think of FCCS as the holding company for Task Manager and for supplemental data, which I'll talk about in a little bit. But keep in mind, just because it sits there doesn't mean that that's the only place you can use it. Again, the integration capabilities of Oracle Cloud are, really second to none in terms of being able to bring these different modules together very quickly and very seamlessly. So Task Manager is available, again, within that application. And by going to Task Manager itself, it brings you to the administrator module, and then the tasks here, which you'll see an icon on the front page. You'll be able to actually access the tasks of which you're responsible for preparing or for completing. And we'll talk a little bit about the dashboards as we get into this. So everything is driven by a template. I mean, I think you all know as you put together applications, especially in Oracle or any other software for that matter, built-in templates really help drive a lot of the work that you do, whether it's for a journal entry, whether it's for a task, whether it's for any type of intercompany report, anything that you need a template for a driver-based budget, right? Templates are really the core, the foundation that bring everything together. So Task Manager is no different. Within Task Manager, you have a number of properties and a number of elements that you can use, as part of your template. So you can see here, you can kind of set, what is the duration of the periods, and we'll get into periods in a bit. Your instructions. So you have the ability to attach documents or to, fill in the narrative. Now you can do it by template or you can do it by task, but it's typically better to do it by template. If any of you use the account reconciliation ARCs tool, the formats is really where you keep all of the, you want to keep the instructions, you want to keep all that predefined information, so that way you do not have to load it up into hundreds, if not thousands, of different profiles. Well, same thing here. The template holds the instructions, holds all that information that you can utilize across the board. Viewers. So you have the ability to give view access only. So if you have, whether it's senior management or potentially an auditor or somebody else, or somebody who's going to do a peer review at some time, this is, where you would want to put those people. Attributes. So you have the ability to really build any type of built-in attribute to Task Manager. So it really gives you, whether it's a yes or no, whether it's a true or false, whether it's, text that you're going to input. It could be a number, it could be a date, it could be various types of information, but it's critical information that would be harder for you to, to store elsewhere, because for anybody to be able to filter it or access it would be difficult, let's say in Excel. But here, you can pull up a report, you can see all this information very quickly. Labels, you have the ability to change your day labels if you wish, and you have the ability to embed templates within templates. So if you have a series of templates that, a series of tasks in a particular template, but those only run quarterly, you could put another template in there that's going to have all your monthly tasks, so it'll be able to combine the monthly with the additional quarterly tasks, so you don't have to recreate all of them. So embedded templates can be very useful. And then rules really give you the ability to either send emails, and I apologize for that weird font there, but your emails, or to prevent submission, or to prevent approval, depending on filters that go across the board. So if you want, this is really helpful in terms of the workflow, and you can set a lot of conditional statements to help you in that regard. The task will not be able to be submitted if the intercompanies, so this is a particular example, the task will not be able to be submitted if the intercompany balances have not been reconciled. So if you don't, either if you're attached to an intercompany report, because you can link directly to the intercompany report in FCCS and say that, and be able to put in a question or put in, some information. So here's, have all the IC balances been reconciled? You would say yes or no. If you said no, it would not allow you to move forward in the process. Looking at different types of templates that you can build. So you can create them and run them simultaneously or at different frequencies. So again, if you want to just run them monthly, you just want to run them quarterly, you really have the ability to go through that. It says, I did get one question I think is important while we're going through this. Can you use Task Manager and Supplemental Data Manager as a standalone solution? You can use it without using FCCS, correct? But you still need to have it. You still have to have that up, but you don't have to necessarily program the dimensions or use the functionality within FCCS, but it does link through it. So you have to set everything up within the Task Manager within that module. Each template will have its own set of tasks, corresponding schedules, and I'll get to schedules in a minute. Templates can be embedded in each other, as I have already mentioned. Filtering. So filtering is really a core element of really most of the EPM products within Oracle. So as you can see here, you can, and what's really great about it is your ability to export this data really in any way for any type of information that you want to look at. But it can help you with reports, it can help you with rules, it can help you with all different types of information. And I'll go back to that later. Parameters. So the other great thing about it is within a template, you have the ability to embed different elements of the application. So let's say in this particular case, it's the data form. It's an exchange rate form. So if I select this form as a parameter, when I run the task, it's going to bring up the exchange rate data form right within the task. And it's going to give you all the workflow information, but it's going to allow you to go in and update it and then submit it or answer any of the workflow, the questions, any, if you have to put an alert in there, if you have to make a comment, you need to post documentation, whatever you need to do, you'll be able to do that because you have access to that form directly. So workflow. So this is, again, really where everything is driven. And if you use ARCs, you're very familiar with this as well. In the old on-prem, the task manager and the account reconciliation, which was called Close Manager back then, and now Task Manager, they actually were part of the same product, same installation. You could use them separately, but you had to kind of install them together. So even though now in the cloud, it's really more integrated with FCCS to start, the workflow is very similar. And you're going to see the workflow again with supplemental data, which is similar as well. So you'll notice here, you can pick your day, start and end. You can, get it down to days, hours, and minutes. You can allow an early start. And really you can assign by user or by team. And what's great about the team is you don't have to push it to a backup or anything. If that person, the primary user, can't get to it, then they will go, they don't have to do anything. One of the backup members of the team can go in, claim it, and then move forward with it. So there's a really, it's very seamless. I think I already went there. Predecessors. So again, with a workflow, right? If you build a project plan, whether in Microsoft Project or Smartsheet or somewhere else, you're going to have predecessors, right? So you can't go to a certain task, you can't work on a certain task until other tasks are completed. So same with Task Manager, it gives you that ability to link them together. Schedules are really the core components of how everything comes together. So once you have your template and you've built your tasks, then you can take that template and you can build on the fly a schedule that you can deploy on demand. Now you can also set the schedules, so you have the ability to, schedule them for different times, or to open, when the month end close or the beginning of that period where you begin your process will start. But you can also do it on demand. So, and it's very easy to do so. You basically click on it, you would go and create a schedule through the drop down and then be able to go and act upon it. You need to open the period. Once you've done that, you can go through the process. So you'll notice here we have done a deployment. So once the workflow has been started, you're going to get two things. You'll be either able to see a work list, which is your specific tasks that you are responsible for, or if you happen to be an administrator, you can see the all the tasks that are out there for all of the users, for all the preparers. But you'll notice here that there's different statuses. So in this case, it's open with the assignee. In this case, it's closed. So it's been successful. This one is pending, and it's either pending for two reasons. One, either the period is not open, which it is because you can see all the other October tasks, or you haven't gotten to that date yet, or a predecessor has not completed their task. So it really just depends upon your overall, where you are in the process. But you'll notice, they're closed. And then it also gives you the ability to track, are they late? What's due today? What's due 7 days? And then there's a drillable area where you can go in. And again, there's other dashboards that I'll show you in a minute, but you have the ability really to drill in and take you to the specific tasks that are associated with that status. And then up here, you'll notice, you have the year, the period, due date, status, and source. You have the ellipsis here, which gives you the ability to add additional filters. So I had mentioned filters before. You can add a filter to here to narrow it down, your selection, a little bit more, right? If you have hundreds of tasks, you may not want to see everything at once. You may want to see something that's due, over the next day. You want to see something, from what source it's coming from, or, any type of information. You may want something that's just, related to the journals themselves. So you'll notice here, and there's a lot of screens here, but I wanted to kind of just give you some different looks. You'll notice here, so when we go out and deploy, you'll notice that this is a journal form. So in FCCS, you'll be able to go out and, actually process the journal. And all of the journal information is here. So you can go in and submit the journal. You can approve it if that's your role, whatever you need to do. But it brings you exactly to that module that you were looking for. Down here you can see, whoops, sorry about that. Let's go back. The intercompany matching reports that I mentioned earlier. So it brings you to the actual intercompany report job. You can click on that, and then you can choose. Do I want it in, CSV format, XLS, XLSX? Do I want it in PDF? What format? HTML? Do I want to drill into it? What do I want? So it puts here the workflow, right? I have one question that I have to answer. So if you were to click on down here where the questions are, you'll notice over here, so in one case I have a comment, so I want to make a comment. I would put in the comment and hit post, or it gives me my instructions that I had mentioned. So all of this on the far right gives you all of the workflow, all of the information that is associated with those tasks. So that's part of the task, but everything within it is the form that takes you right to that. So you don't have to click on a link to bring you over to the journal module, to the intercompany. It's embedded through those parameters right in there. And you'll notice here, once it's done, you can go to actions, you can submit your task, you have the ability to abort the task if there is some problem with it. You can force close if you're an administrator. You can't force close necessarily as a user, but I'm just giving you an instance of how this would look. And then up here on the right, the approver would be able to either approve the task or reject the task if they are approving it and something doesn't look right from what was sent to them. So you have so many different things that you can look at, so many different ways that you can integrate. And I'm just showing you what's coming out of FCCS, but you can have these integrations take you right to any ARCS report, can take you to any account reconciliation profile or reconciliation. It can take you to planning and budgeting, PBCS or ePBCS, can take it in narrative reporting, can take it at wherever you want to build, as well as data management. If you need to do mapping, right, complete your different maps for the new load, you can do that as well. So it really, there's no real limit to it. It's just what do you some of them are pre-built integrations and some you would need to build yourself or with a professional to help you with that. Task Manager reports. So within the FCCS module, you have the ability to see reports. So financial reports, journal reports, intercompany reports. If you're an FCCS user, I'm sure you're all familiar with those. Task Manager reports is also available here. And you'll see, there's some pre-built ones: at risk, task compliance, early, late tasks by organization unit, rejected, task audit trail, and users with late tasks. So there are some built-in reports that you can use. And then I'll get to the supplemental data reports in a little bit, but you'll notice here's one view of this. Again, they all sit in FCCS, well, within the report module. So you have Task Manager there, FCCS, everything. And you can view it the same way you can view any other report. You can view it in Excel and download it. You can, put it in HTML and be able to drill into the links. You can bring it into PDF format, and really and you can do it as a CSV file if you need it for additional formatting. And then we have dashboards. So this really gives you the ability, it's called the Financial Compliance Dashboard, and it gives you a little bit of configuration ability to look at different elements. So in this case, I program, what is coming late, what is coming on time, right? But you can build all different measurements and put them in here, and then you have the ability to click on it and drill directly into those tasks. So you have completed tasks, and all of these are drillable. What's prepared on time. Unfortunately, it's nothing approved on time in this example, but there's nothing rejected. And then if you want to send an alert, let's say there's a system issue or something's missing, you can send an alert that will email that alert to the appropriate person. But it gives you a lot of different information, and you can also do it by organization unit. And then when you click on that, it also gives you, here's another dashboard, and that gives you the ability to drill in based on, in this case, risk level. So medium, high, medium, low gives you that ability. All right, so we're going to talk a little bit about, we'll come back and kind of bridge these together in a few minutes. And I could talk about Task Manager forever, but we only have about 45 minutes today, so I want to make sure to get this in as well. Supplemental Data Manager, which a lot of people don't even realize they have, but it's really a very useful tool. Helps you organize, edit, update, manage unstructured supplemental data. Typically financial transactions, but they're not all financial. It is robust data collection process. You can use them for footnotes, disclosures, supporting details. It can really help you with generation of a 10Q or a 10K. And again, it's embedded within Oracle FCCS. Again, it features workflow-driven schedules. It emulates the workflow somewhat of what Task Manager does. It's not exact, but it has a lot of the same features. Can leverage dimensional structures that exist in FCCS. So what's nice about this is you can build your own additional dimensions, and I'll show you in a moment. But it also gives you the ability to utilize and take advantage of what's already built. Your periods, your views, your entities, your accounts, all that information, scenarios, that all comes directly from FCCS. So I know I had a question earlier that said, can you use these as standalone? You can use them as standalone, but if you want to take advantage of some of the dimensionality within FCCS, then you do need to build out some of that. So it really depends on what you're using it for. And data can actually also be fed directly into the FCCS application, or it can remain standalone in SDM. So it really depends on, again, if it's something you ultimately want to be in a financial report or in a financial dashboard, or available for your close, you can have that pushed in, depending, or you can just leave it in supplemental data and report it out of there. It's also integrated with email to execute the workflow. And again, you have the ability to look at various reports in the different formats. So you'll notice here in the dimensions, I have scenario, account, consolidation, data source, department, intercompany movement. For those of you familiar with FCCS, those are all FCCS dimensions. This one in blue, debt information, is one that I created in SDM directly. So all of those are going to be used, but I don't have to rebuild them all. Very important what's called collection intervals, and for those of you who've used SDM in the past, they used to be data sets, but really what it does is it allows you to figure out what is your point of view that is embedded within a particular form that you're going to create. So your frequency dimension, your year, your period, scenario, that will show up in the point of view. That'll kind of be locked in. You can also add 2 additional dimensions to that to define the data collection process. On the workflow side, so what are those additional dimensions that I just showed you that we built or that we pulled over from FCCS that you can use at the POV level, and you can have up to 5 of those. Once you've built that initial interval, you need to build the data collection periods themselves. So the periods already exist from what you've built before in FCCS. However, same with the frequencies. But the actual workflow calendar, that you set in SDM. Okay, so you have here January 1st to January 31st start end date, and your close date of February 7th. So if, again, those of you who use ARCs will be very familiar with a start end date and a close date and how you can use either to be kind of the starting point for your workflow. And this is where you would also open, close, and lock your periods once you've, once you're within the process. Collections. So the collections really is where you take all this information and you add attributes to them that you're going to use as kind of the body of your form, right? So what are going to make up the rows and columns of your form, not just the page point of view dimension. You can create, input attributes. So I know it's a little small, but, vendor description, account number, due within 12 months, aging type of stuff. Or you could put it in as like a total and calculate. So you can do calculations, but not just calculations. You can average this, a ton of different formulas you can use within SDM. And then once you've, shown whether you're going to input data or calculate those attributes, you can sum them up within the report, within the form, and you have the ability to either sum them, average them, do a count. There's some different measures that you can do there. You also have the ability to create what's called a sub-collection. So the sub-collection gives you the ability to have a lower level of detail within those initial collection elements. So you can actually go down a level to be able to collect information. But you don't have to do it with everything. You can do it with certain components. Once you've done that and you've set that all up, then you can have, you need to build a form template. You'll notice that this looks somewhat familiar to the task manager workflow, and it also looks familiar to the ARCS workflow. So you have instructions, you have workflow questions, access history. You have a new one called sections, and that's really how you're going to pivot, organize your grid, your form itself. So we'll show you in a minute what that looks like. But again, the look and feel of it is very similar. The look and feel. So if you know Task Manager, if you know ARCS, you should be able to get around you should be able to learn what Supplemental Data Manager and how that flows. There's different components to it, but the look and feel is very similar. And Oracle does a good job of continuing to try to make that look and feel. Even between ARCS, the Reconciliation Compliance and Transaction Manager, transaction matching module, I should say, they've done a lot of that across the board. So you'll notice here, within that form template, you can set either data records as rows or columns. And that really just shows, again, whether it's displayed as a table and how you would make those entries, or how the attributes would sit within those rows and columns. So you can pivot kind of how the look and feel is of that. You have the ability to group the primary dimension by other elements. So if you want to have nested groups within that form. And again, I mentioned you can do a summation of the columns or rows. You have the ability to view that, as automatic tabular information within the form. You also, as I mentioned, within the workflow have the ability to post it to FCCS, but you don't need to do that. You can prepare and approve. You can prepare, approve, and post. You can prepare and post if you don't have an approver assigned, or if you're already gone through that process, you can post it. So, but again, you don't have to post. That is optional. You'll look here in the workflow section, and you'll see here you can do it by entity. Now, what's a little different with this is in the others, you have the organizational unit, where here the workflow, the entities you're working with are directly built within the workflow of that form template. But you have a preparer and approver, so you can actually separate between the different entities within that form. So because the entity was one that I picked from my collection, right, for each of those entities, it'll come up as a separate form, and then you have the ability to have a separate preparer and reviewer as you go through that. You can create filters pretty much any way you want to control what they see in the list, what they can see in a view, what they can see in a dashboard, and it can be used really across all the different components. What's nice about a filter as well is you can publish it, or you can just have it private. Excuse me. You have frequencies and periods. So you have, again, these come directly from FCCS. So your frequency is periodic, year-to-date, quarter-to-date, year-to-date input for input. And these are our system members that are coming out of FCCS. So here are the supplemental data tasks. So I have a task within the template called Operating Property Statistics. I have my entity. I have my workflow, my start, my end date, my filters, everything I need here. Okay. I have my purchase obligations. So here I will type in all the different information, due within 12 months, do 13 to 24, all the different information here. And you'll see here that, all the columns have the headers of those attributes. And you'll notice up here that the entity is part of the POV. So this was part of my collection, and this was part of my frequency part of the collection. This was part of the workflow. So you remember when we chose those back in the collection, that's where they show up. Here is where you've set up all of the elements within the template that are going to do that. And then you'll notice down here, this is the sum. That's the totals that they're summing up. Okay. And then actually going back for a minute, you'll see all of the workflow. And you'll see down here, again, you have a very similar look and feel to Task Manager, and it gives you the ability to look at, where you are in the workflow process. You have supplemental data reports. So just like in Task Manager, just like in ARCS, in FCCS, you have different pre-built reports. There's only a few here. As a matter of fact, in this case, we actually built these out of the box. We built these two. So you have the ability to have different reports within supplemental data. And again, you generate them, and you can open them up, save them, and within your directory, depending on which way you want to look at them. So here's a couple of examples. I don't have wonderful examples, so I apologize, but these are really Excel views. It's the best way I could show you the columns and everything. But you can see this one is by entity and has all the information up top. You have supplemental dashboards, which again, the look and feel is very similar to what we showed you earlier. And you have, in this case, you can drill in by entity, and you can get to your form and get to that information. You can change your periods and your scenarios, and again, everything is drillable. You have, and then you have one other thing that's really nice within supplemental data, is called supplemental data analysis. And it does exist within FCCS, but it's basically, you can look at that same template through kind of a filter view and be able to easily export that and change around the columns, change around that information. So you have the ability to really, you can change this around and really narrow it down to what you need. And then you have the ability to export that information. So quickly, some other features as we're running up on our time. You can use the supplemental data extension to work in SmartView, so you can do all this in SmartView. You can create attributes that will translate currencies, so you have a translate function in there. You can reopen a deployed form, which is really nice about this is you can really make changes on the fly. If you have deployed something and then you realize you need to add something quickly, you can make that change, redeploy it, and any data that was already in there is still there. It does clear the workflow though, if you choose, but the actual data will not go away. And then questions, you can have different certification questions, as I noted. You can specify the different preferences, which you can do in any Oracle Cloud module. Data governors really just set like how many attributes can you add to the collection, how many sections per form template, any of this information. So this really gives you the ability to to kind of limit what can be added to a form. And then you can actually create an ad hoc form on the fly, which is really cool as well. Once it's been deployed and it's open, you have the ability to create another one ad hoc with some different workflow and different information. So it really gives you some nice features. So in summary, let's put all this together. And again, I could talk about these products for a long time, and I did want to demo a little bit, but we really don't have any time. So if anyone would like to see this, I'd be more than happy to demo it for you at any point. Centralizing your calendar can significantly facilitate the cycle. Integration of tasks in the modules will save time, reduce errors. Use predecessors to perform tasks in a proper order. So again, use those predecessors. Organizational units and task manager will provide management with easy tracking of the progress. Take advantage of providing proper instructions so there isn't any confusion what is being requested and required. Use email to supplement, not to control the process. So that's a big thing. Use approvers where needed to certify, but you don't have to overutilize approvers. You bring them in at certain points, frequency driven, whatever makes sense. Finance can now take advantage of a separate but integrated module to capture that supplemental data. Again, the supplemental data manager. And finally, consolidation, reporting, task management, and supplemental data manager, all in easy to access and manage platforms. So it's one place, not all one-stop shopping to do whatever you need to control that. And again, that concludes the presentation. I remind you, if you'd like to enter the raffle and you haven't done so, please send an email with your information to info@mindstreamanalytics.com. We'll be announcing the winner shortly. And I thank you very much for listening today. I know there's a lot of sessions going on and you have a lot of choices, so I appreciate your time. And again, if anyone has any questions, feel free to send them over to me. And with that, I don't see any additional questions in the Q&A, so thank you very much and have a good afternoon.